Well, good morning. Happy Monday. It is Monday, the 8th of December. Thank you so much for joining me. I pray God's blessing on your day. um, just a couple things. First of all, we had a great weekend. On Saturday, we had the Chris Kindle Market in the evening. This was a wonderful event and very, very well attended. I believe we had almost 1,000 people come through, although it's hard to count them all. And that is a fairly decent crowd for a size. Our church parking lot holds 100 people. So 1,000 people, 100 cars. So 1,000 people is quite an amazing thing. There were people parking along the road, across the street where we own property. And it was a great event. Very, 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 very Christmas and festival-like. And a lot of work. And I am so grateful for all of the people that volunteered. There were some students that used it for volunteer hours that they needed to get in before the end of the year. So it was really, really a great, great, great event. And it's one of those things that probably you do and you're like, this is a lot of work. And then about 3 or 4 months later, it's like, okay, let's do it again. Just really, really quite pleasant. Lots of groups sang. Creation School did a Christmas program during the middle of it. The dance people came. The Taiko Drums came. That was a new group in the Vale area. And I don't know if you've ever seen Taiko Drums. I was asking Jennifer where we saw Taiko Drums before. And I don't know if you've ever seen a Taiko drum performance before, but some of these drums are 6 foot tall, and you learn there's different rhythms and songs that they learn on these drums. And if you've ever seen a Taiko drum performance, I'm wondering maybe if this was at the Mesa. There was an outdoor amphitheater in Mesa. That's kind of triggering my brain a little bit. We couldn't figure out where we'd seen it before, but we were blown away the last time we saw Taiko drum. This is from a school, so they had 3 smaller drums. They didn't have the big, huge 6-foot drums. I'm imagining that those drums are outrageously expensive. Even the little ones that they used in the performance. But if you've been to a large Taiko drum performance, it's just absolutely amazing. I highly recommend. Anyway, that's another thing. There were performances that were all pretty good. There was a service project, packed dog and cat food to be able to give to resources. So when dog food is donated, it's usually in a 50-pound bag. But if you want to hand it out to people at our local food bank, it needs to be in smaller bags and smaller quantities. So we redistributed that. It was really, all in all, it was a good thing. And then on Sunday night, last night, was the Christmas tea, and the largest number of people at the Christmas tea since we've been in Cienega High School, or since we've moved out of Cienega High School. And that also was a wonderful event, very well attended, very enjoyable. And so all of the things that we do at Christmas time are now done. Now we can focus on the birth of Jesus and getting ready for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So I hope you had a great weekend. Ours was a good weekend. Jennifer and I sang a duet at the Christmas tea, and that was fun. I don't often get an opportunity to sing a duet with her, so that was very, very enjoyable for me. Let's see. As far as birthdays go, we do have a few birthdays, at least one today. Today's the 8th. Jackson Kaczynski. Happy birthday, Jackson. And Allie McDuff, who they moved out of town for a new job. Allie, hi, you're still in here. Happy birthday to you, Allie. Hope you have a great, great, great day today. Let me exit out of that. And let me go over to here. So let's go ahead and get into our Bible study. We are in Numbers chapter 20. And the Israelites are at Kadesh Barnea. And we remember that Miriam died here, and they buried Miriam. And they are figuring out where their next step are, where God's going to lead them. And that's where we'll pick up the story in Numbers chapter 20. So let's start reading Numbers 20, beginning at verse 14. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom, saying, "This is what your brother Israel says. You know about all the hardships that have come on us. Our ancestors went down into Egypt, and we lived there for many years. The Egyptians mistreated us and our ancestors. But when we cried out to the Lord, he heard our cry and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. Now we are here at Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Please let us pass through your country. We will not go through any field or vineyard or drink water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway and not turn to the right or to the left until we have passed through your territory." But Edom answered, "You may not pass through here. If you try, we will march out and attack you with a sword." All right. It is helpful, I think, to see a map of this. But if I bring up a map, then you're going to understand the rest of the story. But let's bring up a map. So they're here at Kadesh. Kadesh is modern day Jerusalem, and Israel is up in this area. So they're southwest of that. Egypt is over here. They've traveled along. They've come down to Mount Sinai. They've gone back up. And now they are in Kadesh. And they're trying to get to Jerusalem, which is the promised land. All of this area is the promised land. And they're trying to get from here to there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of mountains in the way. And the way that they want to go is to go into Edom, which is modern day Jordan, and go along this highway, which is called the King's Highway, up into Moab. And if you'll remember, there is a huge tie-in to Moab. Ruth was a Moabite. If you remember Ruth and Naomi and the story of Ruth, that is over there in Moab. They want to get over to cross the Jordan River and get into the promised land. And if you'll remember, they do cross the river. They do fight a battle at Jericho. But they're trying to get from here to go into the promised land. That's where the story is. And they contact the king of Edom. Now, Edom is a descendant. You have two brothers, Jacob and Esau. And if you remember, Jacob is Israel. Esau is banished. He goes over into Edom, and this is his land. And so they are cousins. Israel and Edom go back and are cousins. You're both sons of Abraham. And you would think that perhaps the Edomites would allow them to go through their territory, since they are somewhat related. And Moses tells the story. He says, we lived in Canaan before. The famine came, we went into Egypt. While we were in Egypt, we became enslaved. We asked God to rescue us. He said he's going to rescue us. We've come out. You've heard all that story. We're trying to get back to the promised land. The promised land should not affect Edom at all, but it might. Because Edom wants to be a good neighbor. And if you want to be a good neighbor, do you allow a group of 1 million people to pass through your property to go into your neighbor's property? Remember, Israel at this point is a large number of people. And even though they have promised that they won't drink the water, they're only going to pass through. They're not going to go into the fields and eat the food. They're not going to drink the water. they are going to just pass through, the king of Edom also has the responsibility to be a good neighbor to other neighboring countries. And so he says, I'm going to block passage. Right now, they are in this very, very desert area that would not be able for them to live. And they're trying to get to an area where crops can grow, a land flowing with milk and honey. Right now, they're kind of in 40 years of wandering around, and they want to get to a much, much, much better land. And the king of Edom says no. But God has promised them this promised land. So they have to get there at some point. So either they have to find an alternate route to get to the promised land, or they have to fight the Edomites. And neither one of those are pleasant, but this is the option that the king of Edom presents to them. Now, in having a place to live, we live in modern day 20th century or 21st century United States, and we don't understand, I think, the historical challenge that has always presented mankind since the fall of having a land that is yours, a land that is fertile, a land that has water, a land where your community can live and grow and thrive. Because we live in the United States, we're the most powerful country in the world. We have very, very clearly defined borders. We have lots of natural resources within those borders. We have the most powerful army in the world, probably the most powerful military of all time. But this is not the normal situation. In years past, you found a plot of land and you lived there until the land no longer produced food or the wells dried up. And then you had to go find another piece of land. And that is a challenging and difficult thing to do. Not an easy thing to do. And then once you find the land, the more valuable the land becomes, the more people want to come and invade your land and take it away from you. This on a limited planet, which is Earth, that only has so much finite resources. This is the battle of mankind. Where do people live? How do we share? How do we share the resources that are plenty in one area to the resources that are lacking in another area? This is how the Israelites got from the land of Canaan to Egypt to begin with. Because Canaan had a famine, and they were forced to go to Egypt and ask for help. And while they were there, they grew into a powerful force that was so dangerous, this foreign group of people that was so dangerous, they became slaves. When I say dangerous, they were not Egyptians. They were foreigners living in the land. And so the Pharaoh was able to enslave the Israelites because they didn't want them to assimilate into the Egyptian culture. And if this doesn't resonate with you, this is the battle that has happened over and over and over and over and over again throughout history. Where does a group of people migrate where they can live? One of the things that has happened in the United States over its history is that there have been periods of time where people have come from other countries into the United States. They see the Statue of Liberty. They see the writing on Ellis Island that says, "Bring us your poor, you're tired. This is a land where you can settle and find freedom." And there have been periods of time where there have been mass migrations into the United States. And there have been times when the United States has said, we don't want mass migration. This is a problem. And this is the battle that has happened throughout the world, throughout time. It is not just a one-time deal. Because what's the ultimate problem? The ultimate problem is as people come in, how are they assimilated? If you remember, people came from Ireland when they had the potato famine in Ireland. And when they came in such large numbers and such massive numbers that it impacted the labor market of people living in the United States. And so they will put a sign in the window that says, "No Irish need apply." In other words, if you are coming in, you have to really, really, really fight to find a place to live. Now, the fortunate thing of the United States for a long period of time is that there's plenty of land and people could move around. But we've pretty much become landlocked. And now every piece of property in the United States at this point now today is spoken for. It is owned by somebody. And now we are at a point where in order for people to settle, they have to have the funds to buy the property to settle. But a lot of people that come into the United States don't have those funds because they come from poor countries. That's why they come to the land of opportunity. And so we are fighting battles now that we've never had to fight 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Back when Arizona was founded 100 years ago, it was the Homesteading Act, and you could homestead previous to the state, and now, even in Alaska, you could go homestead up there and to force people up there to try to populate those areas. But we're rapidly getting to the point in the world, actually, where there is becoming very, very challenging to settle all the population. Now, the thing is that this is my belief, this is not a scriptural belief, that if we all shared the resources, if we took this area and said, what I mean by shared, I'm not saying give it away. I'm talking about having agreements where we allow goods and services or goods from one area to move into another area. So if there's an area that has water, that they give a water to an area that doesn't have water, or food or whatever, that if we all shared in an equitable way, not equitable, I don't want it to sound like it's communism, I guess is what I'm saying. But what I am trying to say is that if we all cooperated together as a way of cooperating between governments, I think that we could eliminate, a lot of starvation that happens in Africa and some of those areas. A lot of these countries that experience severe famine, I blame the leadership because they don't allow food to come in. When the food does come in, they take it for themselves because they are so corrupt. And then they sell that food to other areas so that they can enrich these, the powerful leaders in some of these countries. But this is the human condition. It's the human condition. There's no way to stop the human condition from being the human condition, except faith in Jesus and trust in Jesus, that Jesus is the solution to the human condition. But anyway, all right. So this is a problem that has plagued mankind since the fall. Where do we live? Where do we find food? Where do we find water? Where is the promised land? Eventually, Israel will get to the promised land, and they don't understand the gift that they've been given. They don't understand a piece of property from God that is now theirs that they can claim if they just hold it together, and they don't hold it together. So Jesus needs to come and rescue all of mankind. The early settlers of the United States came into the United States. Can we hold it together? Or will we be conquered by a foreign enemy at some point? These are questions that at some point we'll have to deal with. Because it is the human condition. It is the thing that all mankind has to struggle with, because we all have to eat, we all have to sleep, we all have to drink water, and all of these things in certain areas are in short supply at certain times. All right, so let's get back to our story. So the king says, no, you can't answer. So we'll pick it up in verse 19. Let me bring it up so it's a bit clearer to find. Yeah, right there. The Israelites replied, we will go along the main road, and if we or our livestock drink any of your water, we will pay for it. We only want to pass through on foot, nothing else. Again, they replied, you may not pass through. Then Edom came out against them with a large and powerful army. Since Edom refused to let them go through their territory, Israel turned away from them. So obviously, the Edom route right now is blocked off. So they will try some other routes, and they will find out how difficult it is to get to the promised land, and they're not going to get there unless they actually fight somebody. This is just the way it's going to have to be. And if they fight, then they're going to have to rely on God to be able to win those battles. But that's for another story, another day. Let's continue on verse 22. The whole Israelite community set out from Kadesh and came to Mount Hor. At Mount Hor, near the border of Edom, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will not enter the land I give the Israelites, because both of you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. Get Aaron and his son Eleazar and take them up Mount Hor. Remove Aaron's garments and put them on his son Eleazar, for Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will die there. Moses did as the Lord commanded. They went up Mount Hor in the sight of the whole community. Moses removed Aaron's garments and put them on his son Eleazar, and Aaron died there at the top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, and when the whole community learned that Aaron had died, all the Israelites mourned for him 30 days. So this is the death of Aaron. And we should pause and reflect and remember what a blessing Aaron has been, as Miriam was to Moses. If you remember, Aaron helped Moses cross the Red Sea. Aaron helped Moses as a brother lead the Israelites through the Sinai Peninsula down to Mount Sinai, where they received the Ten Commandments, and now they're wandering to go north to the Promised Land. Aaron has been a steady hand at Moses' side, but God has said that he will not enter the Promised Land. And the reason he will not enter the Promised Land was because, if you remember, he and Miriam complained and argued against Moses. Now, we find out later that Moses does also not enter into the Promised Land. This is the old guard that left Egypt that has to all pass away before the new guard can rise up and they can get enough strength to move into the Promised Land. Moses, at this point, could probably lead the Israelites into the Promised Land, but God has chosen that it will be a different person. And that we find out later that different person is Joshua. So this is the end of the line for Aaron. He goes to be with God and his people. And now Moses is left alone. And this is a challenging time for Moses, because he's lost two of his incredible partners in ministry, if you will. But this happens. Nobody gets out of this life without death. Nobody, it's very, very, very rare that somebody goes up to Jesus directly without death. All of us have to pass through death to be with God. And this is Aaron's time to do that. So we do pause. We thank God for Aaron. We say his blessing, the Aaronic blessing at church. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. And we say that blessing to Aaron as he goes to be with his father. All right, so we'll leave it there, and we'll find out now how in the world are we going to get all these Israelites into the Promised Land, and we'll just have to figure that out in future episodes. So let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for Aaron and the blessing he was to Moses, and thank you for the opportunity to study you and your word. Keep us safe until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, and thank you, all of you online. Wonderful. Yes, it is a chilly morning. Hello, all of you. What a weekend. It was fun. Good morning. All right, so thanks for joining me, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye.